Hello, how you doing today? Hey, this is Cedric coming to you from Military Ring Express, www.militaryringexpress.com. That's militaryringexpress.com. That's one more time, www.militaryringexpress.com. I'm so glad to be with you today. Got another good topic that we want to talk to you about. And today I want to talk about a little bit about terrorism. But I want to talk about the terrorists in Africa. We hear about terrorism in the Middle East all the time. And it seems like we never hear anything about terrorist activities in Africa. But there are activities that take place. There's mainly Al-Qaeda is there. And there's some Al-Qaeda offshoots there. I think one of the most known ones is Al-Shabaab. They operate primarily in Somalia, but I think lately the Somali government has been kind of mobilizing and taking back some ground that these terrorists control. Because the Somali government is pretty weak right now. And that's what these terror organizations do. They find a place where the government is weak. They find a place where there's a lot of land area that the government just can't control. And so that makes it easier for them to come in, and they come in force. They terrorize the local people. They take from them, they terrorize them, they have them frightened and afraid. And once they get them in the state that they want them in, once they get the locals in the state that they want them in, then they can pretty much have free reign to do whatever they want to do. This is how Al-Shabaab operates. And, they're just one group, but, they're an offshoot of Al-Qaeda. But we don't hear a whole lot about Africa. We don't hear a whole lot about military intervention in Africa. We don't hear a whole lot about terror attacks in Africa. And that's for several reasons. I think the first thing is that being a terrorist in Africa is not as glamorous as being a terrorist in the Middle East, because the Middle Eastern countries, most of those countries are straight up staunchly Arab countries, and that's really the birthplace of Islam. There's Islam in Africa, but Islam is not as prevalent as it is in the Middle East. So for that reason, you're not going to find that many more terrorists. You're not going to find many terrorists in Africa. It doesn't really gain terrorists a whole lot of publicity to be in Africa, because there are animals who like to get publicity and they like to be seen. So being in Africa is not going to really do a whole lot for them as far as advancing their organization. The groups that are there, they are staunch religious groups, and they live by that staunch religious code, and they do a few things. But, and also we don't publicize. I think one thing that our government has learned, we've learned not to glamorize, when I say glamorize, we don't do it intentionally. But, when the news gets a hold of a terror activity or a terrorist event, they'll put it on the news, and they'll have people talking about it, and they'll have talk shows and questions and answers and what did we do wrong sessions, and they'll want to get the experts and whoever they think they are the experts, and they'll put them on national TV, and they'll explain this and that. And that's really what terrorist organizations thrive on. So one thing we have learned to kind of take that away from them, so that they won't have that enticement, that we won't entice them and give them something to thrive on. In other words, like we won't give a kid a reason to show out. Sometimes you might see a little kid and he'll show out because he's getting attention. Well, what our government has done, they've learned how to take the attention away from the terrorists. And so therefore it kind of tamps down what they want to do or what they try to do. Now, we do use drones extensively in Africa. You just don't hear about it. But drones are used extensively, not as extensively as in the Middle East, because the Middle East is a bigger hotbed, but they are used in Africa. We do use special operations troops in Africa, not as much as we do in the Middle East, but we do use them. they'll go in and they'll do things like snatches, and they'll conduct operations, where they'll find and destroy something, or they'll find something and bring it back. But they generally do not conduct long, extended military operations. Generally, when our military special forces do something, it's going to be something that's pretty quick, fast, and in a hurry. They'll go in and make a snatch, or they'll go in and destroy a target, and then they're out of there. So that's another thing. And in the United States, we realized early on when we were fighting this war in the Middle East that we could not put out every fire that pops up everywhere as far as terrorism is concerned all over the world. So what we did, which was a good move, is that we went into Africa and we began to train some of these nations' troops and so that they would be able to put down terrorist attacks themselves, and also be able to drive the terrorists out of their territories. And this has worked pretty well. The unit Africa Corps is the operation in Africa that the U.S. has a big part in. And the main purpose of that operation is to train African nations how to deal with terrorists before it gets out of hand. So we did a pretty good thing there, and I think it's worked pretty well because it has kept terrorism under control, or so it seems now. The news reports what happens in one place, and they may not report what happens in another place. And a lot of times this gives us the illusion that everything is fine and dandy and we're walking around fat, dumb, and happy. And when the fact is everything is not fine and dandy. But I do believe that we don't have a whole lot of problems in Africa when we compare it to the Middle East. I don't know exactly how much that we go through or how many problems we have, but I definitely don't believe it's as much as we have in the Middle East. So in this case, you may not like our government or whatever, but I believe in this particular case, they've done their homework and they're doing it right. They're doing it the way it needs to be done. I'm going to stop it from here. I don't want to talk you to death. I know this is a video and you got other things to do, but I love posting these videos, and I will see you again soon. So Military Ring Express, www.militaryringexpress.com. I encourage you to go visit the site. Maybe something there that you like, but I encourage you to just go visit and check it out. If you don't make a purchase, just go look, and I believe you'll like what you see. MilitaryRingExpress.com, and this is Cedric, the Military Ring Man, and I will see you later.